And I'm at 600 now, pretty much daily. And my last A1C was 4.8. So the insulin ratios that I experienced under low carb were not terrible, but not very good. 1 to 10. And then transitioning, I've gotten up to my baseline's about 1 to 30. It would be like a normal exercise, would stress my body. It would send my heart rate through the roof. And it would be really hard to come down and recover, but it's totally different now. So yeah, I feel my age and I feel like really good. Just out of the blue, I was just like, this is interesting. People were talking about this Will Bolshewitz like fiber fueled book. And I read it in like a day. I like knocked it out and I was just like, cool. That makes sense. And then so I just was like, okay, fine. I'll just start eating more stuff. Whatever. Like whatever happens, I feel like garbage right now. And I have a great A1C, but like, who cares? I feel like crap. And then so I'm going to try to get better at it. And so I did. And then I started eating like sweet potatoes. And then I started like scouring the internet for like type 1s that do like vegan stuff. And I was just like, I actually came across the first person I came across that showed up on Google, which was Drew Harrisberg, which is like this Australian guy. You know, he's like this huge, like, you know, buff dude. And I was like, wow, that's possible. Okay, that's cool. And then through him, I found Robbie, and then I found the Mastering Diabetes book. And then I read that book in a couple of days. And I was like, no way. Like, just totally like, this is not real. Like, this can't be right. And then, but so I was just like, you know what? Like, it's amazing how scared you are, like as a type 1 of carbohydrates in general. You're just extremely like terrified. And I mean, I was, and you just don't understand like the fear, because it's hard to describe, because you feel like you're going to enter like some disaster state, right, where you can't recover from with your insulin. I just started gradually shifting. So I shifted to, I would do 2 meals a day, and I wasn't low fat at all to start with. Like I was doing like maybe 150, 200 grams of carbs, but primarily plant-based. And then that just shifted over to like, you know, 2 or 3 days a week, fully plant-based, but like higher fat, not bad fat, but just, you know, whole foods plant-based with some olive oil. And so we had my daughter and we spent time in the hospital, and I was debating about this whole diet, because like my blood sugar is like whoop, 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 and then just up and down all over the place. And our neighbors run like a vegan business, and they have a food delivery service called like Nourish. So if anyone's in like the greater Charlotte area, metro area, like they can kind of look them up. And it would be my wife got a perinatal like meal plan from them because she did some work for them. Anyways, I was just stealing food left and right from her, and my insulin sensitivity just kept going up. It was just ridiculous. And, you know, I was just consuming fat as well, but my tolerance kept creeping up and up and up and up. So I would say probably when my daughter was about 6 months old, like I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to start clamping down on the fat and bringing it down. And as I did that, net by nature, like you have to consume more carbohydrates to meet your caloric needs. And then I just started climbing up to like 300, 400, 500, 600. And I'm at 600 now, pretty much daily. And my last A1C was 4.8. So the insulin ratios that I experienced under low carb were not terrible, but not very good. 1 to 10. And then transitioning, I've gotten up to, my baseline's about 1 to 30. And then, you know, the more active you are, the more you can get. I mean, it's not uncommon if you like lift heavy and run a bit, you see 1 to 50, 1 to 60, easy. Obviously that changes per individual, but at this point, well, I felt like I was about 30 years older than my appropriate age. I would also say that there is something to be said for respiratory kind of like function. So I experienced, so when I would go to the gym, in particular, if a light jog or like a run or something, or even like a pretty intense deadlift, you would experience like heart rate fluctuations that would be like pretty wild. This is on low carb. So for example, like it was very difficult to like recover for me personally on that diet. Whereas like if I measure my heart rate after an exercise, like just a standard deadlift, my body weight, or like just like a normal like 1 mile kind of warm up run, my heart rate's pretty normal, like in comparison to somebody else, like somebody like a friend of mine that I would go to the gym with. We're talking like a 40-point reduction in heart rate, something like a 160 to a 120, which is quite a lot. Like 160 is like, that's on a jog, your heart rate should not be that. And the same thing you could tell like with like deadlifting, and I'm not saying like deadlifting like double your weight or something. I'm just saying like a normal kind of what would be like a normal exercise would stress my body. It would send my heart rate through the roof, and it would be really hard to come down and recover. But it's totally different now. So yeah, I feel my age, and I feel like really good. Yeah, less stiff in the morning. Much less stiff in the morning, and like limber in general. Like I've never been a person to be super stiff, but like I don't have a problem getting out of bed and touching my toes now. Like prior, like it would take the entire day to like warm up my body to like stretch it out so where I could like palm the floor again. So if you're on the fence and wanting to try this diet, all I can say is it's silly. It's kind of silly the amount of carbohydrate energy you can eat and get away with, even dosing incorrectly. I guess the comfort here is that when you do inject insulin, it is predictable in a way that it is not on a standard American diet or a lower carb diet, because you're not contending with an excess of protein energy, which is converted slowly. And you're not contending with an excess amount of fat, which is causing you to square, like out, like